Well, howdy doody there, geographers. It's time for us to talk about urbanisation and, in particular today, the causes and effects of Indonesia's urban growth. Now, many of you may have been learning the Indonesian language, so it'll be good for you to learn a little bit more about that country. Let's get stuck into it. So, your learning goals. Let me just have a cup of tea first. I'll give you the learning goals, give you time to write them down, and then I'll have a cup of tea. So you're going to know the causes and effects of urbanisation in Indonesia. Why is there urbanisation in Indonesia? And what are the effects of all this urbanisation? And you're also going to be able to interpret a map. I'm going to show you a very interesting series of maps, and you're going to have to figure out what's going on. That'll be fun for you. So, Indonesia. It's the fourth most populated country in the world. Isn't that amazing? Just to our northern border there, it's got 238 million people, spread over 18,000 islands, although as you'll find out, most of them are in a very small part of its land. There you go. 60% of all Indonesian people are squashed into just 7% of its land. Madness. And it's rapidly urbanized. So in 1950, only 15% of Indonesian people lived in cities, and now 57% of Indonesian people live in cities. And like lots of other Asian countries, it's got lots of its population living in its capital cities. Something that you'll find out throughout this series of lessons about urbanisation is that Asian megacities is where heaps of the worldwide population growth is happening. So, where is Indonesia? There you go, it's right there. 10, 20 years ago or so, East Timor used to be part of Indonesia, but it had with a little bit of help from Australia, it has gained its independence. So it's very confusing setup here. It shares the island of it shares this island with Malaysia and Brunei. It shares that island with Papua New Guinea. There you go. So spread out all the way across all these islands. Very interesting. Good luck trying to draw that map from memory, and it's just to the north of Australia. There you go. So one thing everyone knows about Indonesia is Bali, which is somewhere around here. Anyway, it's very beautiful. If you haven't been there, you should go. Gorgeous scenery, gorgeous culture. Like, hello, that's awesome. But let's talk about causes of urbanisation in Indonesia. So, a third, 33% of its population increase just comes from natural increase. People having babies. Remember, there's two main causes of urbanisation, i.e. populations of cities getting bigger, natural increase, which is babies, and people moving from the countryside to the city. And what gets interesting is finding out why people move from the countryside to the city. So that is quite a high birth rate, mind you. A lot of developing countries, so usually less rich countries, have higher birth rates than rich countries. Most of the money from foreign investment goes into the cities, and so as money pours into those cities, of course, people want to go to those cities to access some of the employment that comes with all that investment. There are no restrictions. I mean, that sounds pretty crazy to say, but because in Australia we have a lot of freedom, but a lot of countries used to restrict where people could move, but there are no restrictions in Indonesia on people moving from the country to the city. There used to be in China, for example, as we'll find out very soon. And poor people moved into the cities and ended up in the slums, which is like the poor, really densely packed areas, looking for work. Yeah. So the main two reasons for urbanisation in Indonesia is poor people moving from rural areas into the cities to get work, and natural increase, because Indonesia's got a high birth rate. Let's have a look at a couple of graphs, some what would you call them, maps and diagrams. So here we go. This shows the 6 largest urban agglomerations in Indonesia. Urban agglomeration is just a fancy word for giant city. When they say agglomeration is like cities stuck together. So I may have used this example before. People used to go on holiday in Melbourne to St Kilda because it used to be separate, but now because Melbourne's so big, the urban agglomeration, i.e. all of the city stuff, all of the buildings that are all stuck together, is so big that now St Kilda is part of Melbourne. Yeah. So they are the big 6 urban agglomerations in Indonesia, and you can see it's showing what size they're going to be in 2030. So Jakarta, for example, the capital, going to go from 10 million to 12.7 million in just 15 years. That's a very large increase in population. It's not just Indonesia, though. Urbanisation is increasing everywhere across Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia, obviously, it's the area of the world that Australia is in, just south of Southeast Asia. So have a look at the urbanisation rate increasing. Indonesia's, as we mentioned, is just over 50% now, but urbanisation has increased hugely in all of those countries. Well, in the Philippines it was already pretty high in 1981, but anyway. So urbanisation is increasing. The whole world is more than half urbanised now, as I think we can remember from an earlier lesson. Now let's talk about the effects of all that urbanisation in Indonesia. So, Jakarta has gone to 10 million people. Don't know why that weird O is doing there, never mind. So that's 1,000 people per square kilometre. So Jakarta is quite dense. Yeah, it's more than twice as dense as Melbourne. Melbourne's quite spread out, lots of space. Jakarta now controls 70% of the entire country's economy. That's massive amount, right? One place controlling 70% of the entire country's economy. There's been a loss of land, i.e. farmland, so all that farmland has been turned into city. There's less parks, so less national parks and less farms, obviously, so that causes problems for food security, where people are going to grow their food. Because, let's face it, the land is worth more as city than as a national park or as a farm, and so people making economic decisions choose to turn that land into city, or let Jakarta expand. And finally, we have environmental problems, so air and water pollution and deforestation. So as the city gets bigger, the water in that city gets polluted. As there's lots of cars and factories, the air gets polluted, and they have to cut down the forests on the outskirts of the towns so that they can build cities there instead. Let's have a look at a few images. So here is the spread of Jakarta. This is a series of satellite images taken. So what they do is they change the colors so that it's more obvious to see what's going on. So in this one, green is city and red is vegetation, I think. Yeah. So you have a look here. Look, it's gone from like, here's the main city bit here, and then it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then look, it's really, really spread out. And see how there's less and less red, which in this false color map series is showing that there's less vegetation as the city takes over. That's very similar to the map that you're going to have to answer questions about in a second. So I'm not going to give you any more hints about that one because I want you to try and figure that one out for yourself. Here's Jakarta on a day where there's lots of air pollution. It's activity time. So there are 3 maps. I want you to figure out what's going on there. What would be a good title for this diagram? Why do you think there are 3 pictures? And finally, I want you to write 3 or 4 full grammatically correct sentences explaining what we can learn from this diagram. What is that diagram and those 3 pictures telling us? And I gave you a hint a little bit earlier, so write all that stuff down. Okay, we're going to watch a video from the BBC. Jakarta is sinking into the ground, would you believe? And so Indonesia, this sounds completely mad, is planning a new capital city. So watch this.
Overcrowded, choked with pollution, and literally sinking. Jakarta is famous for all the wrong reasons, so what's a president to do? This is Suharto Hills in East Kalimantan, one of the proposed sites for a fresh start.
So the idea is to move the center of government to the new capital in Kalimantan.
These rolling hills, dotted with illegal plantations, may soon be home to 1.5 million civil servants and their families, government, military headquarters and international embassies relocated, with early construction set to start within 2 years.
Saya ingin seperti di Canberra.
I want it to be like Canberra. It's a former farm turned into a capital, and it's very beautiful.
3 regions are under consideration, but the site in East Kalimantan is firming as favourite to land the contract. It already has sizable cities with vital infrastructure in place, ready for expansion.
It would add more industry in the area. I believe by moving the capital, it would open more job opportunities for our brothers here.
Not everyone's cheering. The forest island is a sanctuary for orangutan, and the proposed site adjoins a conservation forest home to the threatened honey bear. There are fears the promised smart, green, sustainable city will end up like its predecessor.
We don't want this. Moving is just moving new problems from Jakarta to East Kalimantan.
The ABC understands several of Indonesia's most powerful political figures have significant land interests in this area and could stand to reap big financial rewards if this project goes ahead. Presidential challenger Prabowo Subianto's family holds considerable land concessions, and Coordinating Maritime Affairs Minister Luhut Panjaitan has a stranglehold on energy contracts in the region. This sleepy village could soon be turned upside down. David Lipson, ABC News, East Kalimantan.
You made it to the reflection activity, and this is a real simple one. This is not something you have to do in your book. I want you to email me a question. Email your teacher one thing that you don't understand. So it can be about the lesson today, or about urbanisation, or if you've got any burning questions about geography in general. Please send me an email. I'll be checking to make sure that everyone in the class has sent me an email. That's it though. Thanks heaps for taking part in today's lesson. Keep it real.